high attacks. I don't think they're going to happen me again. It should be non-subs, so you should be able to comment. Yes, I can see you. Reference educateself.org, 21 goals. Depopulation, depop. Can't spell now. Yeah. Okay, so anyone wants to pop in knowing what they know, let me know. Just let me know. Right, I'm going to pin your comment tags so people know. Hold on, let me just pin your comment so people can see your channel as well. I don't seem to know how to do that right now. Hiya, damn light, how are you? Let me see if anyone wants to come in the box and discuss. I'm poorly, I'm very poorly. I'm being radiated, got a lump in my neck and back of my head, my ears, and it's really not good. So, thank you for asking. Excuse me, how are you? Excuse me, I keep losing my voice. I could have been better, you know what I mean? I'm trying to hold on. I'm trying. I'm holding on. I think the word is, isn't it? I think we're all trying to hold on, aren't we? How are you? So, right, see if anyone, no, it doesn't show that anyone wants to come in. I assume you're subbed to my channel. It shouldn't matter if you're not. Should be able to invite you, but I can't invite anyone in the box. Right. So, I did have a backup of home showing you. Did you take a screenshot, Tax, of that 21 goals of the Illuminati on the website? I'll close the box for now, because I like to mess about with my phone. Allow requests from viewers, okay? So, I've opened up for those that are not following. So, let me see now if I can invite you in. It's not doing it. Nah. Buy the website loaded up there. Right, you want me to show the website again? Tax. Hello, hiya. If anyone wants to pop in the live, I can invite you. Hi, PUG, Mum. If you don't want to pop in, that's fine. I took one the other day when you were showing. Oh, that's good. That's good. All showing out the same information. That's fine. Okay, so let's go into that website. It's the actual original information. Okay. I could have been better, to be honest. I'm very poorly. You know, it's one of those things, isn't it? You just got to keep going. So protection and they're trying to give me another symptoms of a stroke on my left side of my face. I'm well bad for this for days, so I'm just trying to rest up. Right. Thank you for asking. How are you? So you know about Telegram group, don't you? For all those that are doing the events this week, and so, isn't it this week? Isn't it? Yeah. Beware of the full moon if you're spiritual. These demons like to come out on their full moon and do their rituals. Ugh, I wish I didn't know what I know. Right, let me show you the website again. 21 Goals Illuminati. And everyone going by travel, whatever you're doing, whatever you're participating, blessings and prayers to you. Oh my God, my head hurts. Bear with me. Ugh. We will survive. We are empowered individuals. Right, I'm just going to get that website back up. This is demonic. They're attacking so many of us in many ways. Right, educate yourself. Bear with me. Now they're messing about my phone. I can't read comments properly. Bear with me. My eyes are being messing about with my left side of my head, and it affects my eyes. Bear with me. The technology I'm talking about. If you wanted what I was on about. Educate. Gotta retype it in. As they're hacking me on my phone. I've got to do this carefully. Just bear with me. Oh, it is a spiritual war. Right, we got it back. Okay, take the box off. Oh, that's not meant to happen. I meant to try and delete, close the box. Bear with me. I'm trying to close the settings down. Bear with me. Technical. They're not that technical. I should be able to close it down. It should let me do it. I'm trying to sort the settings. Please bear with me right now. I don't know why this is doing what it's doing, but we'll get there. Off, right back. Turn off the feature. Let me bear with me. So you can see what I'm sharing. I'm not able to go to any other protests as I'm so sorry, you like me. Similar position to me. But all we can do is limited what we can do online. As long, this is my opinion anyway. Yeah. How are you? Because we only know too well what it's like. I totally understand. I totally understand. Oh, bless you, dear. Yeah, and you too. You too. I'm just going to get the website. And you too. Okay, right. Let's get into it. The feature's off now, yeah? The screenshot's off. Let me just make sure I can share this. Flip the camera. Right, we're back. Right, here we go. Okay, we're here now. There you go. There it is. Tax, there it is. It's a worry that they are doing this. I know, isn't it? Absolutely. And it's like, when you know all this stuff now, and it's like, right, this is my wheelchair, I can't use. Right, this is, some documents, whoops, upside down. They put faults, just sidetrack for a moment, on my wheelchair, right, they're refusing to repair properly last year, and it's gone faulty again. I got like a strange, the two motors they put on last year, absolutely, I agree with Trax on that, absolutely. So we go through all this stuff, don't we? All people that are going through, your family, your friends and kids, and we're all going through stuff. So we're all trying to do our bit, and that's why I'm doing this. Trying to anyway. Okay. It's very hard sometimes when there's just so many different people's got different things going on, and there's conflicts. And last week, people took my stream out of context, and I got slandered all behind the scenes, and rumours about me, and all sorts going on. And I didn't notice, you know, because I was getting triggered last week by people at my bedroom window. I shouldn't have made that lie, but I wasn't attacking nobody, so I hope people's got that now, and got that correct facts from me, because I was set up by a certain individual. I've got the screenshot messages. I'm not going to make it public. The more important things to be concerned about. So it's all about sharing, coming together, and sharing the knowledge. Okay, here we go. This is what everybody in those websites, what they're doing and what I think they've done a really good job, in my opinion, because this is the old website and a lot of old information. But what they've able to do is reproduce a lot of this in the websites, in the Telegram groups, in the lives they do, and obviously now, you know, from tomorrow in central London, and other people worldwide. Okay, here we go. Unfortunately, I've been in this program since a child. Which parts would you like me to show? Tax. Which parts? And this is basically, anyone wants to screenshot this and go on to the actual website and look for that video. If you don't want to read all of it, you can listen to it. And he no longer is alive. And it goes into the Illuminati. And he was a Committee 300, Skull and Bones, Knights of Malta. It all goes from the past, biblical history, and I bring it forward to date. So he sums it all up in quite a detailed video, to get your popcorn or whatever out and chill out if you can, and listen into it. And it's also a YouTube channel, so you can find it on the website there. Okay, right, I'll go to the key points I highlighted earlier. The key element, I didn't know about a lot of this, by the way, so till a long time ago. The ultimate for humanity is this. This is the key one. This number of the 21 goals of the Illuminati is number 4. To establish ability to control each and every individual through the means of mind control. Okay. And when I opened it up, and to make correct humanoid robots, a system of terror. This is for education purposes, a disclaimer. Okay. The depopulation. The number 1. One world government, new world order. And it's on the website. And destruction of all national identity, national pride, destruction of religion, especially Christianity, establish ability to control. So what I was going to do is click on this, and this is what I was trying to warn last week, but I think people might have took that the wrong way, and I don't know whether or not they know how this technology works. So let me show you look how far back it goes, these articles. Telecommunication towers now under construction. Present mind control threats. 2010. Below, someone posted the article out with the frequencies, how they're doing it with the EMF waves. And on this, you can see how old. Look at this, 1993. I didn't even know nothing like this in China. Worldwide, a lot of these articles are old articles. Ultimate to change the unique frequency of the DNA signature. Ease of control and how they're doing it. I've got patterns I downloaded. So the mind control computer uses, I don't even know this. The mind control computer uses your DNA frequency signature to lock into its control loop. Once your DNA signature is known to the computer, its satellites can focus and lock into you. And within 1 centimetre, oh my God, look at that, of wherever you are located on the planet. It can then direct any control signal. This is what I was trying to warn last week, but I think I didn't know if I presented it the way I was trying to. So for those that participate in any event, no matter where you are, just be aware that they can mess about with your mind, your brain, and your thought patterns. And I hope that, people are aware of this. Yeah. And if you don't know, if you're taking part of these events or know people are, just warn them that this is real technology. They can do that and create people to suddenly become emotions get really raised and high, and it might cause civil unrest. You just don't know. So this is where the technology is real. But I wasn't trying to dismiss anyone trying to do things. I was just trying to warn them about the technology involved. So they can induce nightmares, induce voices in the head, V2K, and the victims of electronic harassment. There's a whole page about all that. It's demonic. This is why such a big push of recent years for the sample your DNA. Can you believe all this? This is all factual. You can research this and take a screenshot for yourself. And it's all on that website. And it's kosher. It's not a BS website. I wouldn't share it otherwise. And today, people who are merely arrested and held in custody are now being forced to provide a DNA sample. So when they set me up, and I wasn't arrested, by the way, this is years ago, when I was attacked, I've had so much horrible things happen to me in the past, and when they took my DNA, and I didn't know about all this then. Didn't know nothing. So basically it goes into the network of government computers right along with the bulging computer dossiers on your personal life. And that exists in government databases, all countries. Okay? Why is that? Yeah, they've got to dumb down people, haven't they? But we're waking up now spiritually. It's a time of spiritual awakening. So they've had all this for a long time, this technology. Okay? And some people will be awakened, some may not because of this. And target individuals, the term, is because of all this. We're the first ones being experimented upon, and we didn't know it. Some people don't know they are. You think things happen in your life is bad luck or coincidence. No, it's not. It's all to do with this. And unfortunately, if you talk about certain things, they're just going to twist it and make you look like you're something you're not. Should I say it that way? But you see, this is why it's really a lot of technology, very advanced now. Dumbed down masses who go along with the New World Order takeover scheme will not be subjected to this experiences, and it will only be free thinkers. So, how many of us now are waking up to all this? And how many of us get symptoms of what's described in their technology? So, and they were just the free thinkers, the intellectuals, the writers, the non-conformists. This is where the words are coming out now, you see, these words. And the entire of liberty-minded, and they call us troublemakers. You will be on the receiving end of these transmissions. Oh, now they've hacked my phone. Okay, they're hacking my internet. Right. Construction of these towers must be halted. And still, where we are now with it all. But that's not going to happen until enough people wake up to this looming threat. We're already here. We're already here. Okay. So that's on that one. And we'll go back to 21 goals. So let's go back up so you can see. So this was 1993. This Dr. John Coleman, 1993. And all this had been planned a long time ago. Excuse me. Now, depopulation, number 7. Let me know if you can see this. Just tap the screen and let me know it's showing up, okay? It began in that area, in that country. That's where they tested the depopulation. Why do you think the different nationalities are coming into England? Because there's certain agendas from the past, and Club of Rome, it's all linked together. And who was behind this initially? So here you go, here's the names. This is the original. Who began all this? Behind it. You might want to research who he was connected to in his family bloodline. There's been an earthquake in Palma. How to spell that? P-A-N-A. There was one yesterday in Baril. They're messing with it so much. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Well, Mother Earth is fighting back. These dark times are going to rise up. We're rising up. This is a spiritual war. This is absolutely a time of awakening, isn't it? To retake back our power. I hope those people are best they can be safe. Best they can be, isn't it? So that's our number 7. This is all began with the use of drugs and things, experimentations. You can read all these lists yourself. I just even couldn't believe all this has been going on for a long time. and why they created. Why did they start wars? But when you look at the past centuries of wars and bring it forward to date, you can see. This is what number 9 is. Means of limited. Oh God, I'm really suffering today. Bear with me. By means of starvation, diseases. Now it says a third world country. Yeah, Florida. I've just seen that post. Tax. You sent me a link to that video, didn't you? Prayers and blessings, everybody, going through these times, no matter where you are in the world. So here you go. The death of 3 billion people by the year 2050. Do you want to take a screenshot of that, Tax? Or anyone? It's number 9 of 21 Goals of Illuminati. Is that? There's your evidence. That's what it's all about. Yeah, I heard somebody's live. Oh, I didn't get much sleep. I heard somebody was live, and I think that was a YouTube, or I can't remember now. But yeah, and I follow somebody's page. Excuse me, I'm being very unwell. I've got to have a drink. Oh my gosh. Oh, just bear with me. I need something to drink and eat. Oh, this is really not great. Bear with me. Oh my gosh. I'll be back. I can't talk properly at the minute. Got a bloody punch in my bloody well. Bear with me, I'll be right in a minute. I've got blurred vision on my left side of my eye. You will put your comments in the chat for a minute while I do this. Gotta have something to eat quickly. Get some vitamin C in me. It's time 5 o'clock, 5:30. Okay. Heart, yeah, definitely. Heart, weather engineering, geoengineering. Dean Whittington is a very helpful website. geoengineering.org as well, if you want care to look at that up. Putin said the West government feeds drugs. Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't be too surprised. It's like they are triggering me with they target me with frequencies on my side of my brain, and causing symptoms of a stroke. I'm not having one per se, but this is a technology they use. Bear with me, guys, ladies and gents, individuals. I have to be slow, very careful. They're ramping it up right now because of what I'm sharing. A lot of people are on the end of all sorts of things going on. Bear with me, please. if anyone doesn't know about frequencies and technology, what they're doing to our bodies, I do try and share when I can some videos or like photos of information that might help the body, help the cells. There's a lot of good people getting information out, isn't there, at the moment? Well, already have for a long time. But more importantly, if you can get yourself some natural spices and herbs and to boost your immune system, if you don't already do that, just bear with me. Don't get this inside me. Keep focused and go back to what it's doing. I'll bring that in. Hold on. Right, I'll do it this way. I'm by a window trying to get some air. Oh. Right. I'll play this video for the moment in the background, okay? Because it just gave me a chance to. Dr. Coleman. Let me just see if I can get this. Okay, let me show you. Gonna zoom in again. Okay. There's a book by Dr. John Coleman. What's that? They know a lot of people are starting to wake up and need to expand their plans. Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, tax. 100%. 100% on those. They are aiming for 2025 according to the report. Oh, wow. Yeah. Look how many people are affected, addicted. Yeah, you want to see my medication list. Oh my gosh. And it's like, I didn't know what I know about all this. And then, so I can't go into certain things at the moment. But anyway, yeah. Okay. So, right, I'm going to show you where to look for this on the website. "2005, look at that. Look at that. It's got a book on Amazon at the time as well. Warden, oh good gosh. Alright. I missed where that video was now. Okay, back to the goals. They did a bit of research, so they were funded by JP Morgan. We know where that leads. Yes. Oh, tax. Yes. Totally. Yeah, all wised up, definitely. So this is where I was in the mind control. The production of nuclear generated electric power That's number 5. And OLA, known as NAFTA, the Global 2000 North American Free Trade Agreement. I can't balance this device, bear with me. Now, if you want to know, to weaken moral fibre, what do you think of certain things going on now, which I can't mention what? Demoralisation of workers, all the working strikes in labour classes, by creating mass unemployment to club our own again. The youth of the lad will be encouraged by means of rock music and drugs to rebel against status quo, undermining and eventually destroying the family unit. Commissioned the Tavistock Institute, they did, to prepare a blueprint as to how this could be achieved. Tavistock directed Stanford Research undertook the work under the direction of Professor William Hammond, and this work later became known as Wow. Do you know what that building still exists? And you might want to look at now what public funded company is actually in that building. Now, this is the book by Dr. Colman. Now, this was set up. Oh, look. It's always the royal family, but soon include the Rothschilds, related to Lord North Clyde by marriage, and the Rockefellers. Wellington House. Yeah, Wellington House is Tavistock connection, and which grew into Tavistock 1921 after propaganda victories of First World War and the Federal Reserve banking system created in 1913. Wow. So, the Tavistock Institute Human Relations, unknown to people of the United States before Dr. Coleman exposed it, and its existence. The Tavistock Institute in Human Relations and Britain's control of the United States up to that time. And Tavistock had successfully retrained its selective role in shaping the affairs of the United States. Since its early beginning in London, 1913, Wellington House, they began its propaganda, creating dismantling organisations centred at Wellington House, where the original organisation was put together with the intent of shaping a propaganda outlet that would break down the stiff public sorry, I'm not letting him, but trying to anyway distract me. So yeah, since the article in Dr. Coleman's book and his speech is all been explained, and how the Tavistock role, and who is, when you look into the history of Lord Washmere and North Clyde, and the mandate to produce and organise and capable of manipulating the public opinion and directing and manufactured opinion and down the desired pathways, reference to the war on Great Britain against Germany. That's a long time ago, isn't it? So funding was provided, and who provided funding? British royal family. Then did a bit of research and saw they were funded. Yeah. So Let's go down a bit. Look at this. In 1936. I mean, this goes back a long time. All this planned. What's going on now? To become a Tavistock Institute, as I said, and why. It goes into why. The New World Order inside One World Government to create. So, a massive book was adopted as a blueprint for the new working model to bring in and about the decline and fall of Western civilization necessary to create and establish the New World Order inside a One World Government. The key two factors of the sentence. This individual is held it bound to happen, that alien elements will be introduced. Can you see that fake alien agenda coming? Will be introduced into Western civilization, increase in numbers, and that the West would fall apart at that time to expel the aliens, thereby sealing its fate. A society whose inward beliefs and sound convictions would become a balance, if I pronounce that right, and its outward profession and the Western civilization would fall by the wayside into the manner of an ancient civilization of Greece and Rome. That's what they want us to go back to. It's all about going back to that. So, if you want to just, it's just disgusting. And the fall, let's go back here. So that was in that paragraph. So, what was a very rare resistance became a common occurrence. A black man married to a white woman. And this is where they put the race conquer and divide in, don't they? Doesn't matter what creed or colour you come from, walk of life. They planned this all along. The two world wars, first and second. But look at the past, because it's not just these. So this individual suggested that the Greeks and Romans were, these are the key words, to social, religious, moral and spiritual advancement and the preservation of womanhood, and they were successful for just as long as they were in control and could arrange. So yeah, this I won't go into all, but it's quite detailed, the reading, so we've got time to read it through. And the plan, I mean, it's quite a long read, and the reasons why things have happened the way it has, and foundations and the history. Let's go back to 21 Goals of Illuminati. So this is where you'll find the links when you click on. Okay, you've got the FEMA. Don't forget how they became established and what the reason for. That's on number 11. Tavistock Institute, just showed you, is number 10. FEMA, number 11. Black mobility. They included the music industry, the occults. Not just music, is it? And that's on the planner, number 12. 13. Build up the cult of Christian fundamentalism. And there's links to that you can read up on. 14. To press and spread religious cults such as, keywords I'm not going to repeat. And who was part of this? Okay, some people now gone off because it's quite a long, I'm showing you what somebody asked me to do and I just done for them. So there you go, and I'll just play this and then the live that way.
I've been studying this
So I can turn this up.
in what's happened to our country, and you know, it's kind of sad in this country that you have to come to a meeting on Saturday morning to get the truth. You can't turn on the television because you sure don't get the truth there. So we sure appreciate everybody coming out, but in order to do that, I ran across Dr. Coleman's work, and when you've studied this and looked for the truth, and it's a pleasure to find somebody like Dr. Coleman that'll bring you to a new level of what the real truth, who's really behind what's going on in this country. None of this is an accident. This is orchestrated. This has been planned and plotted and is moving right along. And if the only thing that you can do is be informed and learn what's going on, who's really behind it. And nobody does that better than Dr. Coleman. He's an author of 3 books. He has a table back here.
Sorry, I can't take this feature off.
Through his material,
Okay,
it'll bring you to a new level of information as to what's going on in the country as well as the world. And this is the only country left that stands between the country as we know it, or the world as we know it, and the New World Order, which will drastically change everybody's lives, as Dr. Coleman will tell you. But the big difference between Dr. Coleman and some of the other speakers is he's been in most of the places that we're talking about. He's been in Lebanon, Brazil, France, Italy, Spain, England, South Africa, and all over the U.S. And he did this, in his work. He has firsthand experience with most of the things that are going on here. He studied 5 years in the British Museum in London, also in the Cain Museum in Egypt, where he did research on the Black Plague. And if you study his work or read his work on AIDS, I think it'll shock most of you. In his investigation, through the congressional records, and the congressional records is where most information is in this country. And he would feel very comfortable, in debating the Supreme Court justice on the Constitution at any time, because our Constitution is basically being walked all over at this time. But at this time, I'd like to bring on Dr. Coleman, and let's give a big hand to him, and we appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that great welcome. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to be among you here this morning. Looking at all these big fellows around the place, I feel a little small in stature, but I would remind you what Wellington told the German General Blücher at Waterloo when he rode up to inspect Wellington's troops. He saw the Scots and the Irish Guards on the hillside. He rode through them and he turned to Wellington and said, "They're rather small, aren't they?" And Wellington said, "Yes, but they don't run away." Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you a message of hope, not fear. A message that I hope will galvanize us all into much needed action. The problem is quite simple. Anarchy and chaos prevails in Washington, D.C. because the federal government has seized powers to which it is not entitled to and is passing masses of laws that are 100% unconstitutional.
it's not go with me, darn.
And when you get men setting themselves up as greater than the Constitution of the United States, you get anarchy and eventually tyranny. Now, I'm paranoid. I'm going to admit to you right up front. But let me tell you what the real meaning of the word paranoid is. It is a man or a person who has the ability to link events that seemingly are not connected. That is the true meaning of paranoia, or being paranoid. Of course, it's been used by our enemies, the socialists, the Marxists, the liberals, the so-called progressives, to smear us. How many times haven't I heard it said of me, that fellow's paranoid? Yes, I'm glad to admit it, because I have the ability to connect events that are seemingly unconnected. And when you do that, you begin to arrive at the truth. It's taken me 25 years to come to the conclusion that I have come to. And I want to tell you that one of the biggest things I discovered in my work was the existence of a supranational committee composed of 300 men. I came across this quite by accident when I was serving in Africa, in Angola, and I was given a series of documents which were only supposed to be handed in to top-level people. They were what we called above the top level of classification of intelligence documents. And there I discovered that whilst I thought I was in Africa fighting against the invasion of the communists, I was in fact fighting to introduce socialist regimes in the black African countries, and that I was actually working for a committee called the Committee of 300, also known in intelligence circles as the Olympians. I'll stop right there, and I want to digress for a moment and tell you the word intelligence has been bandied around a great deal in the United States. I've seen people writing this and that and the other intelligence newsletter. They really have no experience whatsoever. In 1986, I wrote a work called Mind Control, Metaphysics, Extremely Low Frequency Radiation, and Weather Modification.
Wow.
And in that work, July the 8th, 1986,
1986.
I said that the top-level intelligence organization in the United States was the National Reconnaissance Office, far bigger than the CIA and any of the other intelligence agencies. And by the way, we have about 10 different ones in the United States. And I even had the audacity to give the address of this organization. 3 weeks ago, Mr. Sam Donaldson, the gentleman who wears that beautiful toupee so effectively, he came on with the program in prime time, and
Share
he said,
this out, those that are popping in the chat, to help others know what's going
about
on.
The National Reconnaissance Organization. Exact same
You'll
thing
find
that
this
I
on the website, so
earlier.
if you want to
I
do
tell
your own
you this
videos, just
to
share
set
it
the
out
stage
and
so that you
do what you want
I do
in
have
that
some
regard.
experience, and that I know that of which I speak. You know, the American people are somewhat like the Irish. I'm sure you've heard the story of the Irishman who got shipwrecked.
If you can like and share it, that will help get this out the stream and help others to be aware.
Some people came out of the trees waving spears, and he said to them, "Is there a government here?" And they said, "Yes." He said, "Well, then I'm against it."
It's a long video, so I hope you got patience to watch this, or you can go on the website and watch it.
We are individual people. We are not the mass. So disdainfully referred to by Karl Marx and the socialist writers. We objected to a tax of a penny a pound on tea. when King George
This
of
is
the
everyone
Venetian
needs to
Party
know
of the
this.
North.
Doesn't
Now,
matter
that's
where you
probably
are.
the first time you've heard that expression.
This has always
It
been the
took me
plan.
5 years of digging in the British Museum of London,
21 goals,
which I
and he
consider to be the
explains it.
finest repository of knowledge in the world, to come up with that name. That was what the party of King George was called, and we'll come to the reason for that. But our colonists said, we're not going to pay this penny a pound on tea. Today, we are being driven on our knees by a tyrannical government, which is imposing all sorts of taxes upon us, and worse than that, trammeling on and tramping on the Constitution of the United States of America, which is the second greatest document in the world next to the Bible. And if we could rebel against the mighty powers of King George III, the most potent force in the world at that time, then, ladies and gentlemen, it is time that we rebelled against a federal government that is trammeling the Constitution underfoot every day of the week. King George III of the Venetian Party of the North did more than that. He sent Adam Smith, a servant of the British East India Company, to formulate a policy which he called free trade. And by the means of free trade, Adam Smith, a greatly beloved economist of the Marxists, the socialists, and the liberals, hoped to bring the small manufactories and the industries established by the colonists to their knees. Let me tell you unequivocally that free trade is piracy. There is no such thing as free trade. We have to reject this constant brainwashing to which we are subjected.
Okay, Turks, take care.
Free trade began with Adam Smith and the British East India Company. Now, who is the British East India Company? They played a massive role in the history of the United States of America. Only you are not taught this in your schools or in your universities, but you need to know. In my book, The Committee of 300, which took 20 years of research, and incidentally, I was only a little bit behind with Karl Marx. He spent 30 years in the British Museum in London, where he got most of his things from. I point out that the British East India Company was the most powerful trading company in the world. They made their massive monies out of the dope trade. They first grew prime poppies in Kew Gardens in Kensington, London, got the best producing opium poppies. They then shipped them to Benares in India, where they began a massive plantation of poppies, opium-producing poppies. They then used their famous tea clippers to transport the poppies in the form of raw opium to China. And by their military force, they imposed an opium policy on China that turned the Chinese nation into a nation of addicts. And they enforced this policy, which was known to the royal family and Lord Gladstone, the Prime Minister, and every one of the lords and ladies in England. And they made a massive, huge fortune. In researching these documents in India House in London, I came across some of the manifests of the old tea clippers and the numbers of kegs of opium they carried in the values. And I totaled up these things, and I found to my astonishment that if we took 1970 as an optimum year for profits in General Motors and Ford, in 1 year, the opium trade with China was 3 times the profits of the combined profits of Ford and General Motors in 1970. And this was shared by 300 people. That was the committee that ran the British East India Company. They all had equal voting rights. They could not outvote each other, and of course they were sworn to secrecy. The descendants of the British East India Company today run the United States. And I will hope to prove my thesis as we go along. They also interfered in the development of the United States on every occasion. They armed the Indians, they armed the people against the settlers who were pushing west. They ran the Hudson's Bay Company. They also ran so-called mission stations in China, and got these missionaries who were really not missionaries at all to push opium on the Chinese. And I remember a conversation with the late Gamal Abdel Nasser, of Egypt, Prime Minister of Egypt, President of Egypt, and Mohammed Aiko, one of the top journalists, with Chow En-lai. And Chow En-lai told him, he said, you know, the Americans and the British made China a nation of opium addicts, and now with the Vietnam War, it's our turn. We are going to make the Americans a nation of opium addicts. So you can see the influence, the evil, baleful influence of the British East India Company upon the great nation of the United States of America. They were the ones who financed the war. They put up the money for the British troops to buy the Hessian mercenaries and to fight the colonists. The brave 3%, let me remind you that only 3% of the people took arms and stood up against the mighty army of King George III. We are 3% here this morning, but that's enough for us to withstand the mighty force of the federal government of the United States of America. These 300 men in the Committee of 300 still run the world today with an iron fist. Their wealth is untold, cannot be measured. I know I looked at some of the records that I could find in Italy, in Rome. I've done most of my work on location, and this has always been invaluable to me. And I came across the families in Italy who were called the fondi, meaning the people who had all the money. They were all members of the Committee of 300, the Lucatis, the Recanatis, the Volpi du Miseratis. These people are so wealthy that they would make David Rockefeller look like a piker. That is how rich they are. And this is the committee that runs the world. Now, in my book, The Committee of 300, I name every one of them. This is not a book that talks about they. It gives you specifics. And I must say I do the same thing in my new book, Socialism, The Road to Slavery, which was 10 years in researching. On July the 4th, 1789, George Washington told the Congress, it is necessary for us to impose tariffs to protect the manufactories of our colonies. That was the first trade barrier. Now, let us dispose for once and for all with the words that have been implanted on our minds, like isolationist, and you are for restricted trade, and you are against global trade. The United States of America did not grow great on global trade. The United States of America grew great on the hard labor of the people who lived in those days and the wise protection barriers put up by President George Washington, because immediately after the war, they tried, the British, to try to down the United States through so-called free trade, which is nothing but piracy. Free trade, ladies and gentlemen, is a one-way street which allows other countries to dump their products on our markets to the detriment of our own people. That's what free trade is. It's strictly a one-way street. The trade barriers were increased by Lincoln, Garfield, and McKinley. And all three presidents paid with their lives for that policy. Disraeli was particularly incensed with Lincoln. Disraeli was the British Prime Minister at the time. And he ordered British MI6 to assassinate Lincoln, which is what they did. The same way as British MI6 publicly executed President John F. Kennedy at a later time. Our founding fathers and our presidents saw the value of trade barriers. They realized that we, if we wanted to progress, were not to be the dumping ground of the world. And I'm going to leave that subject for now and return to it later. The format that I want to use this morning is the type of questions that are most often asked of me. I've spoken to hundreds of thousands of people across the United States and worldwide. And I've been on many, many radio shows. And these type of questions, we note them. And this is what comes up most of all. Who and what is the Committee of 300? Well, I've dealt with that. I've told you this is a supranational body that knows no boundaries, respects the laws of no countries. The first time that they were publicly announced was by a German socialist by the name of Walter Rathenau. Now, I'll give you some background of Walter Rathenau. He was the financial advisor to the Kaiser of Germany, and he was also the financial advisor to the Rothschilds, the French family Rothschild. So he must have known what he's talking about. He made an astonishing statement in 1934. He said, there is a committee of 300 men that rule the world. They are known only to each other, and nothing happens without their consent. When former head of state Mikhail Gorbachev visited the United States a few years ago, flanked by George Bush and Quayle, he opened his Gorbachev Foundation in the United States. And he let slip, he said, this is being done with approval of the Committee of 300. CNN cameras were on him. They immediately switched. Now, I wrote to CNN and I said, could I have a transcript of this program, which they said was available. I never got a reply. I followed it up with letter after letter, but nothing ever came of it. The point I'm trying to make, ladies and gentlemen, is that the federal government, the secret upper-level parallel government that runs the United States, does not want you to know that you have an upper-level parallel government that calls the shots, that dictates what is going to happen to your life and mine. So that's how I found out about the Committee of 300. The next question is, what are their goals? Their goals are a one-world government, latterly called the New World Order. The one-world government began with King George III. At the time that the colonists were brave enough to take him on, King George was already busy formulating a one-world government, and he had lined up at least 50 countries that were willing to come into this future world dictatorship with him. The goals then, very simply stated, are to make the world over into a one-world, new world order dictatorship controlled utterly and completely by this Committee of 300. How can they possibly carry out their goals? That's the next question that I'm often asked. They do it by dint and by virtue of their fantastic wealth and the fact that they control thousands of the top banking institutions, the political organizations, insurance companies. In fact, one of the giant insurance companies, the man called me and said, do you mean to tell me that they are controlling the Metropolitan of New York? I said, the Metropolitan of New York is peanuts. He said, how can you say that? That's a giant American company. I said, well, compared with the Assicurenzi, the Generali di Venezia, it's peanuts. That's the biggest insurance company in the world. They control in that organization everything that happens in the world in the insurance field comes out of Venice. That's why Venice is so important, because in Venice we have the black nobility. Now that has nothing to do with the color of the skin of the people, and I'm going to come back to them as we go along. So the goals are a one-world dictatorship of the most brutal kind. And how they carry it out is they have these interface banks, insurance companies, mining conglomerates, every conceivable control in politics, including the Democrat Party of the United States, which is, of course, since 1980 behind closed doors at a secret caucus in Washington, D.C. The Democrat hierarchy took on the goals of the old Socialist Party USA, i.e., based upon the Communist Manifesto of 1848. If you have a copy of my book, and I'm not pushing it, but in my book, The Committee of 300, I list every one of their huge, gigantic corporations, how they interface. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is an eye-opener, because it gets right down to the nitty-gritty of your everyday life in the cities and towns across the United States. So they carry out their goals through existing organizations. And also, of course, they have built up some special organizations of their own. When I first started writing in America, when I came here in 1969, I revealed the existence of an organization called the Royal Institute for International Affairs, which is located at Chatham House in 10 St. James Square in London. I also revealed the existence of the Club of Rome, the Cini Foundation, the Montpellerin Society, the Order of St. John, which was known but not known. And I listed all of these secret societies that run the world as executive arms of the Committee of 300. So it controls the world through all of these. The Royal Institute for International Affairs is the executive arm of this committee, which gives instructions to the United States government to this very day. The chain of command is as follows. Every Secretary of State that has been appointed since 1919 is appointed by the Royal Institute for International Affairs. That may come as a shock for you. You think you vote and you put a conservative in the White House, and then he appoints supposedly or allegedly conservative people to carry out the policies that you wanted them to implement. Surprise, surprise. I ask you to find me a conservative Secretary of State since 1919. And if you search diligently and apply the correct rules, you will come out blank. Every one of the Secretaries of State was chosen in London by the Secretary of State, as was Wilson, the President Wilson, as was Roosevelt, as was James Earl Carter. He was specially chosen because he'd had 3 mental breakdowns, and they felt he'd be a good guy to manipulate. Oh, I'm talking facts. I'll tell you the story of that. In my World in Review news magazine, I wrote that, James, I'm digressing a bit here, but it's necessary to do that now and then. It's not a sign of a bad speaker, although I don't put any laurels around my own neck. But James Earl Carter was not a known entity in the American scene. I first heard of him through my intelligence contacts, particularly my French sources, who were one of the best in the world after MI6. And he told me, your next president is going to be a peanut farmer from Georgia. And I said, how come? He said, right now they're meeting at the Dorchester Hotel in London. And if you get your fanny over there, he said, you'll find that there's a lot of goings on you might like to look at. And lo and behold, that's what was happening. The Royal Institute for International Affairs had ordered David Rockefeller to find a candidate who was totally weak, preferably a little mentally weak. And they put one of the greatest brainwashing specialists in the world, trained by the Tavistock Institute for Human Relations, Dr. Peter Bourne, on the job. And he said, it's funny you should say that. One of my patients is a guy from Georgia, James Earl Carter, and this guy can't take rejection, and he's been to me 3 times for a nervous breakdown. So they hiked Carter over to London and feted him at the Dorchester Hotel, which is a very ritzy place. And they feted him and wined and dined him. And the next thing we saw, Time, Newsweek, every newspaper in the country, James Earl Carter. Now we, in our little magazine, World in Review, we told those of our subscribers, this man is your next president. We also did exactly the same thing with William Jefferson Clinton, because we had the story of the Club of Rome. We knew who Agnelli was. We knew that Agnelli had had a huge love affair with Mrs. Pamela Harriman, and that Mrs. Pamela Harriman was the doyen of the Democrat Party, and Mrs. Harriman had been given the task of finding the next president of the United States, a socialist. And she picked up Clinton and said, you're our boy. But there's one snag. Clinton went up there, brushing his forelock back, and said, well, you know, there's one problem. My wife's left me. So Mrs. Harriman was dumbfounded. She said, well, you better get us back in a hurry. And he said, no, she doesn't want to come back to me because of my trice with other women. That's how he put it. My philanderings would have been a better word, but he said trice with other women. So Mrs. Harriman sent for Mrs. Clinton, and she duly came to New York, and she sat her down and said, look, if you want to be the first lady of America with all the attendant prestige and power, you better forget about your husband's philanderings and get right back to him. And that is precisely what happened. And when I heard that had happened, I knew this guy was the next president. And we wrote that in our news magazine. And sure enough, a year later, here came marching into the scene William Jefferson Clinton. So the RIA, the Royal Institute for International Affairs, does control everything that happens in the United States. They give their orders to the Morgan Guarantee and Trust Bank on Wall Street. And the chief executive officer of that organization is Dennis Weatherstone. And he duly relays the orders over to the Secretary of State, whoever that happens to be. And he then relays the orders to the president. There was one exception to this, and that was during the illegal, 100% unconstitutional Gulf War. Now, I'm going to use a word, and I apologize to the ladies for this, but I need to tell you this graphically to illustrate the power that the Royal Institute for International Affairs exercises over the affairs of the United States of America. When George Bush was hesitating and didn't know whether he should get into the Gulf or not, the Prime Minister of Britain, Mrs. Margaret Thatcher, came over to the Committee of 300's headquarters at the Aspen Institute, Colorado, and this is the phone call that she had with George Bush. She said, "George, this is Margaret. Apologies to you, ladies president. Get your ass up here. I've got some orders for you about the Gulf War." And Bush went scurrying up there like a little messenger boy. And the next thing we know, there was this massive outpouring of propaganda to start a war against the nation of Iran, a nation that has never done this country one iota of harm. I use those illustrations in order to give you the extent of the control that is exercised by this Committee of 300. There are many other societies that are operating for the RIIA. The Illuminati, which has been around for many, many years. I've written a work called The Illuminati in America, 1784 to 1994. A lot of people think this is an ancient secret society that's gone away. They think that Adam Weishaupt had a quarrel with the Catholic Church and that's it. Don't you believe it? 13 of the top families in the United States are in the Illuminati today, and they have a big say on everything that happens politically in this country. Then we have the Society of Cincinnati, which I don't think many of you will have heard about. That is an ultra secret society to which every president of the United States is forced to belong, including our so-called conservative presidents. And I point this out to you to show you that it doesn't matter who is in the White House. This committee of 300, through the Royal Institute for International Affairs, through the Council on Foreign Relations, exercises complete control. But their strongest arm is called the Club of Rome. Now, when I first heard of the Club of Rome in 1969, I immediately began my investigation. And as Ken told you, all of my investigations have been done on location. Every one of them. The Club of Rome is one of the most insidious, baneful organizations in existence today, which has done intolerable, immeasurable harm to the United States of America. This Committee of 300 told a man called Aurelio Pecchi to form this Club of Rome with the main object of bringing down the industries and the agricultural development of the United States. He immediately wrote a paper in which he said there are too many people on the earth and that the United States, with its industrial development, its agricultural development, is responsible for this curse of overpopulation. And he picked up the documentation for his work from Lord Bertrand Russell, a senior statesman of the Committee of 300. And Lord Bertrand Russell had written a work called The Impact of Science on Society. And if you can ever secure a copy of that book, which I doubt you'll be able to get, you will see in there that he said the world is grossly overpopulated and we have to get rid of at least half of the world's population, and it doesn't matter how we do it. So the Club of Rome was instituted and organized to start an attack on the world's population using the United States as the whipping boy. And they came up with a paper called the Zero Growth Post-Industrial Plan for industry and agriculture for the United States of America. 3 days after that plan was accepted as official United States policy by James Earl Carter, I was able to, through my intelligence people, get a copy of this insidious document. Basically, what it said was that the middle class in the United States of America had to be destroyed because in the coming push to a world order, the middle class would be the stumbling block, because history had shown that the peasant class in ancient days, when they had revolted, were just easily crushed. There was no resistance. But now had grown a new super class of people in the United States called the middle class, who had long-term employment, who had job security, who were well paid, who could afford to buy the products that were made by the United States and didn't need to buy products from China or anywhere else. And the Club of Rome post-industrial zero-growth paper said, this has got to stop. We have to bring down the middle class of the United States. And the way that we will do this, the way that we will accomplish this task, is by crushing their industries. In 1980, based on this report, I wrote a small work, a booklet called The Death of the United States Steel Industry. And in that, I told of a French aristocrat by the name of Etienne Davignon. And I'm sure there's not a single steel worker in America out of a job who's ever heard of this man's name. But they put this aristocrat onto the job of destroying first the steel industry. In my book in 1980, I said that by 1985 we would have silent blast furnaces. The rolling mills would be stopped. There would be no more shipbuilding. We'd have thousands of skilled workers who'd pass the skills of their trade down for generations, who were forever dispossessed of their jobs. If you go to the Northeast United States today, ladies and gentlemen, and I've just been up in Cleveland where I had a very good radio address I gave there, you will find that what I said in 1980 has unhappily come to pass. In 1970, the United States had 5,000 ships built by good United States know-how, using good United States steel. 5,000 ships sailing the high seas. Last year, we had exactly 270 such ships. And at least 50,000 steel workers permanently out of a job, jobs that will never come back. What happened? Did we suddenly lose our marbles? Did we suddenly lose that great American know-how of getting things done? Did we lack finances? Did we run out of money? No. None of those things happened. What happened was this dastardly Club of Rome had sent their emissaries to the United States to deliberately destroy our steel plants. And they did it by opening the doors of so-called free trade. And everybody who signed the NAFTA treaty and everybody who signs the GATT treaty when it passes is a traitor and a seditionist. Our mighty steel industry is destroyed. Our shipyards are silent. Our skilled workers are permanently without a job. And if you don't believe me, get the report of the Club of Rome. You know, when I came out in 1969 with my report on the Club of Rome, nobody had ever heard of it. And people, when they got it, said, "Oh, this guy's paranoid. There's no such organization. It's probably something to do with the Catholic Church." Well, surprise, surprise, 25 years later, last year, the Club of Rome celebrated its celebratory anniversary, and Alexander King, its chairman, stated, "The American people henceforth must get used to the idea that they will never, ever again in their lifetime have full employment." What a scandalous thing that our government is fully cooperating with this organization built up by the Royal Institute for International Affairs to destroy the middle class of the United States and to add to the policies of global genocide. That brings me to the next question. What is the Global 2000? Once again, when I heard about this policy, it was 3 days after it had been accepted by the United States government as its official policy. And the Global 2000 was a blueprint for mass genocide produced by the Club of Rome. Basically, what the Global 2000 calls for is the destruction of half of the world's population by the year 2050. Hence the title 2000. They built a case based on Bertrand Russell and H.G. Wells' findings that the world was going to be overpopulated, would be a terrible place to live in. That was picked up by a fellow called Robert Strange McNamara, and a stranger individual you're not likely to meet in this world. And this man had a conference of all the leading bankers about 12 years ago, and he said the biggest menace facing the world today is the American middle class and overpopulation. He linked the two together. And he said, by the year 2050, this is the state of the world. All of these unfed, unwashed people, no jobs. He said, do we want to live in a world like that? So the Global 2000 was a genocidal plan to take care of the people of the United States who don't have any jobs and who, like Alexander King said, are never going to get their jobs back, and the masses of people in other nations. That is why we had the sudden appearance of AIDS. When I was in the service, I was told there's a CAB experiment, that's chemical and bacteriological warfare experiment, going on in Sierra Leone, in Africa. That's a remote corner of Africa, West Africa, just above Liberia. If you look at your map and your atlas, and you'll see where it's located. Why Liberia? Extremely hard country to get to. You have to fly from London. That's the only way you can get there. You land on an island, and then you've got to take a ferry across to the mainland. And of course, all people taking the ferry are heavily scrutinized. And I managed to work my way. I was told the Americans were doing the CAB experiment. I managed to work my way to within striking distance of a small mission station. And what I discovered was that these blacks were coming in from the bush to this mission station with broken arms or an ulcer on the leg or something like that. And they were ostensibly being treated there, but they were dead by the evening. What was actually going on was that the laboratory had been set up using Lassa fever virus. Now, at that time, Lassa fever was one of 4 viruses that could jump the human-animal barrier. And it was a deadly virus. They were trying to create a virus that could be mass-produced and it could be sent out through the World Health Organization to get rid of millions of people in the world.
Disclaimer now.
But the Lassa fever virus proved uncontrollable. It killed 3 scientists who were working there. So the orders came from Washington, burn the place to...
So this is on, what you just heard, is a website, Dr. John Coleman. I have to pause it there, some information I can't put out myself. Okay. That was Dr. John Coleman. Also on this website, I was just sharing earlier for a couple of followers. Okay. That interview and that video is on this website. Now, a lot of this evidence, 21 Gods of Illuminati, is on here, and you can go into a lot of other factual information. So, right, let's go see if I can get it, because I have to stop streaming. Yeah, I need to have a break. Right, so I'm just going to go back in the website in case you don't like. If you want to listen to that full, very full interview, I'm just going to show you where to find it. Okay, it's a long history, and if you go into this section, the website's in my bio. Okay, this is a whole factual list from history to date and where we are now. 21 goals of the Illuminati and the Committee of 300. What you just heard is how the Committee of 300 was established, and it is very detailed. You just heard briefly part of it, and that is on the depopulation. The Global Committee of 2000 report there. It goes back into history and to date, basically. Okay, gives you key names. For research purposes, entertainment purposes, disclaimer here, I'm sharing this. But if you want to read up the original 21 goals of the Illuminati and what it entails to date. Now, the story of the Committee of 300, Dr. John Coleman, there is on YouTube as well. And there is a video. So that's what I had to cut through because some of it is on YouTube as well. But just for this platform, I just want to be careful. So for those taking part in your events, you know what's going on and why people are not waking up. There's a reason behind it. You can have a look around and see why. From my opinion, all these years, I find this more credible and reliable than anything else at the moment. But although you do have skills and talent to research, it's got positivity on it as well. The late Bill Cooper, if you want to know about mystery schools, and no disrespect, hello tax again. Bill Cooper, my batteries are low, so I have to get some recharging done and just take a break. Depending on my health. This is dated 2013. The documents, secret documents of the Mystery 12. Now, late William B. Cooper, ex-Marine in USA Navy, had a radio show, and he's produced loads of information and documents he's studied and researched. Now, does anybody know about Bill of Rights? Now, those are studying that. That's brilliant what you're getting out, by the way. And this is really, really good because I can only do what I can myself. I am, unfortunately, being censored and offline. But hey, this is a spiritual war we're in. So he covers, yeah, I'm low in battery. I've got to charge my phone up now. So